Good evening, I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Pauline Verzosa.
And I'm Shawn Yao.
Our big stories tonight. The Independent Commission for Infrastructure is dead and has lost all its credibility, says Congressman Egay Erice after Commissioner Rogelio Babes Singson abruptly resigned.
And despite losing a second official in less than 3 months, the ICI soldiers on, putting forth new referrals for charges against former Senator Bong Revilla and other DPWH officials.
And the flood control scandal pushes President Bongbong Marcos's approval ratings to a new low, whilst that of Vice President Sara Duterte holds steady. We'll break this down later with WR Numero in the program.
Very intense and stressful ICI work has taken its toll on this aging body.
I don't see any disgruntlement or any frustration on the part of Secretary Singson. Talagang disappointed na siya. Why would he risk family and their privacy? Parang taga-linis ng palasyo, pagkatapos kulang sa suporta. Tingin ko, patay na yung dead na. It's already dead. ICI is dead.
There you have it. Former DPWH Secretary and ICI Commissioner Rogelio Babes Singson was all the news today after word of his resignation got out. Officially, he cited health and security as reasons for stepping down. But Congressman Egay Erice, who apparently had been texting with him about the ICI, spilled the beans. Singson was fed up about the Commission's lack of support from Malacanang. Here's tonight's big story.
The big bombshell at today's Independent Commission for Infrastructure hearing wasn't a witness testimony. It was ICI Chairman Andres Reyes Jr. announcing that Commissioner Rogelio Babes Singson has filed his resignation effective December 15.
He mentioned the very intense and stressful ICI work has taken its toll on this aging body. For health reasons and also for security, because he's not used to this kind of life.
The ICI hasn't thought about replacing Singson yet, but Reyes tried to assure everyone Singson's departure will not affect the commission.
We have been filing almost against everybody already. I think that's enough trust that we are building on for the Filipino people.
Prior to this, rumors spread that Singson quit because he no longer believes in what the ICI is doing. But in our sister program Storycon, ICI Executive Director Brian Hosaka denied this.
Wala naman ganun na reason or ganun na dahilan. Whenever we work here, talagang we're really cohesive, no? Nagkakasundo naman yung tatlo. And I don't see any disgruntlement or any frustration on the part of Secretary Singson. There was really no argument there. There were discussions among the members of the commission, but there was really no intense argument to cause any disgruntlement or probably frustration, which would lead to any resignation by the members.
This was flat out rejected by House Senior Deputy Minority Leader Egay Erice, who said that Singson had been texting him about his frustration over the ICI's limited powers. Together, they had been pushing the president to certify as urgent the bill granting the ICI full subpoena and contempt powers, but Marcos has yet to act on it.
Nararamdaman ko na talagang disappointed na siya. Para bang sinasabi niya, why would he risk his family and their privacy to be parang taga-linis ng palasyo. Parang nangyayari sila yung tagahanap kung sino yung nagnakaw sa gobyerno, pagkatapos kulang sa suporta. Matagal na sinasabi sa akin ni Sec Babes na kailangan talaga ng congressional mandate ng commission para madagdagan sila ng kapangyarihan. At least, meron silang immunity para balikan sila ng mga makapangyarihang pinakasuhan nila. At least may protection sila in the future.
Erice went so far as to say that without Singson, who knows the ins and outs of the DPWH, the commission is dead.
Tingin ko, patay na yung dead na. It's already dead. ICI is dead. Ang pinakamahirap dito, nagbabago kasi yung para sa akin, nagbabago lagi yung narrative ng palasyo. For example, yung kay E.S. Bersamin, sinabi nila na nag-resign out of delicadeza. Pero sabi ng E.S. Bersamin, hindi siya nag-resign. Hindi tinanggal siya.
There was broad consensus that Singson's resignation is a big problem. House Infrastructure Chair Terry Redon said that Singson's resignation is, quote, a serious setback to its fact-finding work, particularly as Secretary Singson had insider access, institutional memory, and deep understanding of the goings-on in the DPWH. Redon advised President Marcos to, quote, appoint a replacement with the same level of expertise and integrity as Secretary Singson. We have noted that the ICI joined the referral to the Ombudsman, even though these alleged congressman contractors had not yet been invited by the ICI for deliberative proceedings. Meanwhile, Congresswoman Laila de Lima called Singson's resignation, quote, a major blow to our efforts to push for a truly independent, transparent, and comprehensive probe into the anomalous flood control and other government infrastructure projects. She added, sa dami at lawak ng dapat nitong imbestigahan, baka pulutin sa kangkungan ng ICI kung hindi ito palalakasin ng batas. She also questioned, bakit hindi na bigla umusad sa Kamara ang ICAIC bill? At nakakapagduda rin kung bakit ayaw pa rin ng Pangulo na i-certify ito as urgent. Meanwhile, former ICI Special Advisor and Baguio City Mayor Benjamin Magalong, the first to resign, said as of today, he has no idea what led to Singson stepping down from the ICI.
Nalulungkot siya. Very competent siya, very passionate siya dito sa ginagawa ng ICI. Kaya I'm just wondering kung ano yung reason.
And after announcing Singson's resignation, ICI Chairperson Andres Reyes Jr. went on to announce a set of new referrals, this time involving senators. Former Senator Bong Revilla is among 10 personalities whom the ICI put forth to face plunder, bribery, and corruption charges. The commission did not disclose which infrastructure project is linked to this case. Some of the other names you're seeing right now are former Senate staffers and relatives who allegedly asked DPWH Undersecretary Roberto Bernardo for a list of projects on behalf of their bosses, while the rest are DPWH officials here in Metro Manila. And as for Senators Cheese Escudero and Mark Villar, as well as former Senators Grace Poe and Nancy Binay, the commission said the gravity of allegations warrants further investigative review and case buildup against the four. Again, no specifics were made on how the ICI arrived at this recommendation. Meanwhile, the ICI will transmit additional evidence against 8 personalities for possible case buildup, including former Secretary Manuel Bonoan, ex-lawmaker Zaldico, and dismissed Bulacan District Engineer Henry Alcantara. Revilla told his spokesperson that he is dismayed for not getting a chance to appear before the ICI to defend himself. Despite this, the former senator, who was acquitted in 2018 for plunder charges in the PDAF scam, says that he still has faith in the justice system. And as for Poe, she said the recommendation is no surprise and proves there is no evidence against her. Poe served as Senate Finance Committee Chair in the 19th Congress. This Wednesday, the ICI heard testimonies from Pasig Congressman Roman Romulo and Bulacan 1st District Congressman Danny Domingo. Both requested executive sessions, which the ICI quickly granted.
Almost 79 billion pesos. That's how much taxpayers' money may have been lost to ghost flood control projects alone, according to Senate President Pro Tempore Panfilo Lacson. Lacson said the estimate was only based on inspections of roughly 13,000 flood control projects conducted by his office and that of Senate Finance Committee Chairman Sherwin Gatchalian. And these only went as far as 2016. Of those he inspected, almost 500 were found to be non-existent. Lacson said the 12 billion pesos in assets frozen by the Anti-Money Laundering Council and the 100 million pesos returned by former DPWH District Engineer Henry Alcantara is only a fraction of what the government has lost to corruption.
Kasama substandard or ghost lang?
Ghost pa lang yan. Wala pang substandard, wala pa itong mga road projects, wala pa itong multi-purpose buildings. Flood control pa lang yan. So you can just imagine. Well, dapat magsipag yung AMLAC, yung web of accounts na amendment ng Anti-Money Laundering Act dapat ma-execute or implement properly.
So magkano na po yung amount ng ghost project?
Nasa 79 billion. Still huge, ano?
Opo.
Considering na we're talking of yung naabot ng AMLAC so far as announced by the President. Nasa mga 12 billion pa lamang yung pros and accounts. And then si Alcantara, nag-restitute ng so far 110 million plus another 200 million in 2 weeks time. Si Bernardo, I don't know, parang ang estimate ko at least 1 billion. Ang layo pa natin sa 79 billion.
The Armed Forces of the Philippines, together with the Philippine National Police, have also been inspecting infrastructure projects and have come up with a different number. The AFP said they found about 252 ghost projects nationwide out of the 10,000 they've checked.
There were 30,000 projects that were deemed for the Armed Forces of the PNP collectively to inspect. 10,000 na po yung ating na-inspect from the side of the Armed Forces of the Philippines. And it turned out that a total of around 252 of this na mga naikot na po namin are ghost projects from 2016 to present. All over the Philippines ito.
Meanwhile, Department of Public Works and Highways Secretary Vince Dizon has flagged more issues, and this time in Siargao. He went there this week to do an on-site inspection, which revealed that several projects were far from finished despite official claims of completion. Among them are the Maasin and Asinan bridges in Pilar, reported as completed in 2022 but remained under construction and unusable to date.
What is the reason? Huwag ninyo kung doon gusto malaman ni sir. Bakit wala nagtatrabaho ito?
Okay, let's talk about all of this. We've got with us tonight on the line ML Party List Representative Congressman Laila De Lima. Good evening, Congresswoman. Welcome back to the Big Story.
Good evening, ladies.
Congressman.
Gina, Shawn, and Pauline. Good evening.
Congresswoman, let me start off with the big news of the day, which is Commissioner Babe Singson resigning abruptly from the ICI. I know that you're unhappy about that. We ran your soundbite on our package, but what are you thinking at this point? Does the ICI have any recourse from here?
Well, my first thought about that is that maybe is feeling already, is just so overwhelmed already by the workload that because he's been waiting, I think, for the for help in the form of more powers in the form of the ICAIC, the one we've been pushing for, the bill that has passed already at the committee level, but unfortunately has not been presented yet at the plenary level at the House, and there is no word yet as to whether or not it's going to be certified as urgent. And that's why we've been pushing for it, because we know that ICI's work is simply overwhelming, that there are more cases to be looked into, there are more evidence to be evaluated, there are much more work to be done, and they have meager resources, they have less personnel, and they have less powers. And so I think that's it. I mean, it's just overwhelmed. And I don't know if there are other reasons. Maybe there are some internal dynamics, and maybe he could feel some pressure or whatever. We really do not know yet the real reason for his resignation, other than the officially announced ones.
All right. Well, what I wanted to get from you, Congresswoman De Lima, is what is your sense about the ICAIC? Do you feel, obviously, you already stated that it hasn't been certified as urgent, it hasn't gone through plenary. Do you get a sense that it's getting held back or that it's losing support from your peers?
I really have that feeling that it's being held back, that some things, there's something wrong, because there was some initial announcement about it being prioritized, that it will be immediately tackled at the plenary level after it gets passed at the committee level. And it was passed already at the committee level. There's a committee report already. There is a consolidated substitute bill already, and the next step is supposed to be presented at the Appropriations Committee, because of there is an appropriation, so it has to be cleared first at the Committee on Appropriations before it's presented at the plenary. This week we were expecting that, but we have no information or no update about it. And then next week is supposed to be, we were expecting that either this week or next week it's going to be presented as plenary. And now we have only 6 session days left.
Right.
So we're running out of time. So, you know, para bang dribble ito. We really don't know what's happening on the part of the
What's your
authors
Congresswoman-
of the bill. We are wondering why. There's a sudden, change of tack.
May I toss the question back at you, Congresswoman? Why do you think that it is, or you get the sense it's being held back? Was it something that came out in the news? Was something uncovered? When did the tide seem to turn?
It's difficult to speculate, really. Well, first, let me say that ICI is doing fine in the sense that, there's been several referrals already. 7 or 8 sets of referrals to Ombudsman for further case build-up, for further evaluation of the evidence before preliminary investigation can be conducted. But then it really lacks teeth, it lacks power. So if they're serious about accountability of running after all those involved in this biggest scandal in our history, then they must be conscious, or they must really be serious also in coming up with that more powerful and more independent body. So what are they afraid of? They should equip the body with more powers, and why are they now all holding off? So I'm not sure. Are they? Would they want it to be limited to just certain personalities? Are they trying trying to control the proceedings and make sure that it would only cover certain personalities and not be reaching whoever? Because the call, the demand of the people is that all those that the evidence would point to or point at must be held accountable. No sacred cows, no exceptions.
Congresswoman, going back to the resignation of Secretary Singson from the ICI, he cited health and his age as his reasons for stepping down. But you have Congressman Egay Erice also saying that he actually had text messages with Secretary Singson where he supposedly expressed his frustrations with the ICI's limited powers. Would you know anything from your end, and what do you make of the timing of the resignation of Secretary Singson?
It's really I think it's part of the reason, his frustration. Because, nagpapa-SOS na talaga. He also, Secretary Singson also has messages. I also have exchange of messages with him. And he's in fact following up already about the status of our bill. Sabi niya, that we really need more power because of the sheer volume of cases, of matters, of referrals also they've been getting, the complaints that they have been getting. So they need more power. So he was getting impatient already. So that's part of the reason.
In short, you don't think you can push this bill through without President Marcos certifying it as urgent?
Because as I said, only 6 session days remaining. Because assuming that the committee report will now be forwarded to the plenary, because today is Wednesday. This is the last session day of the week, because session days is only from Monday to Wednesday. And the next week, Monday, is a holiday. So there will be only 2 remaining session days next week. Now, there will be sponsorship first, the first reading, and then there will be a deliberations, debate, period of amendments, and then before the voting and the approval. So without certification by the President as urgent, I don't think this could pass in 6 session days. You see? So certification as urgent is quite imperative. You see, it's necessary if we want this bill to be enacted into law within the month or before the break, of the Christmas break of Congress.
Well, as we know, to pass a bill, you also need the Senate to be in on it. Do you think all this...
Magbabaycam pa kami, magbabaycam pa
Yun nga
to
po
reconcile. You see?
Right.
You have the Senate version, you have the House version, so we need BICAM to reconcile the differing provisions of both versions. So no time.
Yes, and also charges were recommended by the ICI against some senators and former senators today. What did you make of that? Do you think that that would or could factor into this whole non-passage of the ICAIC?
Which one again? Which one? I'm sorry.
The filing
Which
of
one?
recommendation of the ICI to file charges against some senators, former and current.
I guess, are you optimistic that Senate will pass it, given that many of their members are being implicated?
Well, what I know is that in the Senate, there's already the Independent People's Commission bill as authored by the Senate President, and it has passed already the committee level, the committee stage, Justice Committee chaired by Senator Chico Pangilinan. If I'm not mistaken, it was already approved at the plenary. So the House version is what is lacking. And then after the House version will be the bicameral deliberation. So I don't know if there's still time. It's very frustrating.
Right.
So what's happening? I've been asking that. What's happening? Why are they dragging their foot? Yes.
Congresswoman, you're right. It has passed Senate committee level. Yun nga, we're waiting to see what happens in the House. But outside of that, what else? Are you happy with the way that the hearings have been going in terms of in how the ICI has been handling it? I mean, of course, they only just started live streaming this week, so we only got a first look this week as to what happened. But already a number of people have asked for executive sessions, and I don't know if we'll ever see what came out of those executive sessions. How do you feel about that?
Well, executive session is supposed to be an exception. You see, the strict general rule is live streaming. Now, executive session should be the limited exceptions, only when it falls under the judicially recognized exceptions like national security or the sensitive matters and about the data when the matter is protected under the Data Privacy Act, for example, or diplomatic correspondences or a privileged communication, or there's a short list of judicially recognized exceptions that can be considered as that can be subject matter of executive sessions. A mere request by any resource person for an executive session cannot just be granted without if it does not fall under any of those recognized exceptions. So hindi pwede na ang exception ang nagiging general rule.
Congresswoman, going back to Shawn's question earlier, the ICI put out a new set of recommendations and charges today. There's the recommendation for former Senators Jinggoy Estrada or Senator Jinggoy Estrada and former Senator Bong Revilla ng plunder and graft. But on the other hand, for Senators Cheese Escudero, for Mark Villar, and former Senators Grace Boy Nancy Binay, for further investigation yung recommendation sa kanila. What message do you think that sends? Do you sense that they are being spared from accountability?
Well, we cannot. I think it's premature to make that conclusion that they are being spared from accountability. Maybe they don't have yet enough evidence at this point, or maybe indeed whatever evidence they have at this point would warrant or would necessitate further evaluation. So it doesn't mean that they're not gonna refer that anymore to the ombudsman. Maybe they're still waiting for some other evidence, etc. So it's just for further evaluation, but it doesn't preclude the eventual referral to the ombudsman. Because, even if it reaches the ombudsman still has to also make its own evaluation and its own further fact-finding before it decides whether to conduct already the preliminary investigation to determine whether there is probable cause. And if there is, then that is the time that the case will be filed with the Sandigan Bayan, and then the Sandigan Bayan will be issuing the warrants of arrest.
Okay. We'll leave that there for now, but thank you so much for talking to us tonight. ML Party List Representative Congresswoman Laila De Lima. Thanks for your time.
Just going to take a quick break, but coming up, Commission on Audit flags the Office of the Vice President over its livelihood program and security detail. That story and more when we return. Stay tuned to One News. Back to the big story. The Commission on Audit has flagged the Office of the Vice President's Magnegosyo Taday livelihood program for several deficiencies in its implementation. Among the issues raised by COA are beneficiary selection, project evaluation, and the delayed liquidation of funds. In its 2024 annual audit report, COA noted that the OVP failed to assess beneficiaries if they were qualified to receive cash grants, contrary to the program's guidelines that require their evaluation. The Commission added that the OVP had no written documents detailing the screening and distribution of welfare goods amounting to 110 million pesos. Accounting errors were also flagged. In a financial statement, it was declared that the Office of Vice President Duterte purchased 3.9 million pesos worth of laptops, but these turned out to be photocopiers. The OVP, in response, has admitted to clerical errors in its report. It also assured the state auditor that it will review the missing documentations and other issues raised in its flagship program.
Meanwhile, the COA also flagged VP Duterte's security detail in 2024. According to the auditor, the VP still has 335 security personnel that are being paid for by the government. That number is also nearly half of the total OVP personnel in 2024. It's not clear if Duterte's security detail has been reduced in 2025. During her first year in office, VP Sara had 433 personnel in the Vice Presidential Security and Protection Group, or VPSPG. In April of this year, the AFP reorganized the VPSPG as part of its streamlining efforts.
Despite that, VP Sara Duterte's performance ratings have held steady, while that of President Marcos have been hammered by the flood control scandal. The latest survey published by WR Numero, conducted from November 21 to 28, found that public satisfaction for the president has dropped to a new low, with only 21% saying they think he's done very well. 47% say otherwise, or in Tagalog, which was the language that this survey used, hindi mahusay. 12% said they weren't sure about his performance, or hindi sigurado. This chart that you're seeing extrapolates the satisfaction over dissatisfaction ratings over the course of 1 year and gives us the clearest picture yet of public sentiment on the president. As you can see, the red line showing dissatisfaction shot up in the last 3 months, coinciding, of course, with the flood control scam being exposed. His blue line, or public satisfaction ratings, have in that same period dropped significantly. In contrast, Vice President Sara Duterte's numbers have held steady, with 43% approving of her performance. Only 23% said they didn't approve, while 34% said they weren't sure. Looking at the same line chart for her, we can see that Duterte's dissatisfaction numbers have leveled off, staying more or less within the 20s for more than a year now. Her approval ratings, the blue line, have also been on the decline, but at a much more modest pace. And as recent as April 2025, she still managed to lock in 50% positive rating. All right, lots of questions there. Let's try to break it all down with Dr. Julio Julay Tihanki, political scientist and a professor at the De La Salle University. He's also a member of the Executive Committee of the International Political Science Association, or IPSA, the first Filipino and Southeast Asian to hold the post. Good evening, Dr. Julay. Thanks for joining us. I think you're on mute.
Good evening. Good evening. Sorry about that.
Very
Me. So, good evening, Regina. Good to see you again. Of course, Shawn and Pauline. It's good to be back on the Big Story.
good to see you again. We have lots to discuss. First off, let us
Yes.
help us make sense of those two approval ratings results for President Marcos and
Yes.
Vice President Sara Duterte.
Yes, there's a lot to unpack in the latest release of WR Numero's Philippine Public Opinion Monitor. And what's unique about this survey compared to others, because it's largely crafted by social and political scientists. The focus really is on the political dimensions. And one dimension of this is the classification of respondents based on their self-identified partisan affiliation. No? So that's one. But the bigger news out of this survey is the fact that 3 months after the president himself exposed this flood control scandal in his State of the Nation address with his Mahiya naman kayo speech, his attempt to regain the political advantage by exposing that scandal and in effect acting as his own whistleblower in his own administration. Apparently, after that Mahiya naman kayo speech, there was some bump. He regained some of the support from the public at 35% in August. But now, as we end this year of turbulent political events, there is a steep decline, and he has plunged to 21%. No? So that's a huge decline, 14% down, and he is in a precarious position right now. And as you have shown in the chart, the steep rise of the dissatisfaction with the performance of the president is indeed alarming. Compared to his political rival, the vice president, who has maintained a very comfortable level of positive approval with her own set of survey data. And as you can see right now, the gap between those who are satisfied and dissatisfied is not too close. There's a comfortable gap between those who are satisfied and those who are dissatisfied. Now, this can be read as the vice president, despite all the controversies, despite all of the attacks against her, and the numbers would show that she still has a lot of political capital to rely on.
Okay, well, another thing that struck me from your survey, Dr. July, is the rise of the undecideds, or the so-called third force in all of this. That has gained,
Yes.
I think, 3 points from the last
Yes.
survey. Talk us through that segment of the
Okay.
population.
Yes. So as we all know, since the breakup of the so-called, the much vaunted Unity Team, which catapulted both BBM and Sara Duterte to power in 2022, since their breakup, our politics has revolved around the clash of these two political dynasties. So it's our political gravity has focused on the existential battle between the House of Marcos and the House of Duterte. But if we look at the data and if we chart those who identify themselves as part of the administration or part of the opposition, we can see that a significant segment of the respondents are non-aligned or median or moderate individuals, or in political science parlance, we call them the median voters. So that can be interpreted in several ways. One, they're not interested. Second, they're interested, but they have a wait and see attitude. Like, for example, those who do not favor either camp and would not identify with them stands at 41%. And those who are unsure also at a high 35%. So the total of these two is 76%. Now, if we go to the next question, which actually asks them to identify whether they are pro-Marcos or pro-Duterte or pro-liberal reformists or Pinklawan or Dilawan and their allies, we can see also that if we look at the numbers and the results, still a high 39% would consider themselves none of the above. So for those who are asking, how did you classify the factions, the partisan affiliation? Well, the respondents were asked how they identify themselves. Yeah. First, generally, administration or opposition. Then later on, they were asked, are you pro-Marcos? Are you pro-Duterte? Or are you part of the so-called pink Lenny and her allies? So that's how it was conducted.
Well, in the press con earlier today, Dr. July, you said an interesting bit, right? You were quoted as saying that Marcos tends to gain an advantage over the Duterte faction, but later loses it as if they are their own worst enemy. Explain that to us. And at this point, do you still see any viable path for President Marcos to regain public trust in the last 2 years of his term?
Well, I said a lot of things during the press conference, but apparently that was the soundbite. So now I have to explain it, right? So, if you will look, ever since the Uniteam breakup, these two camps have been at each other's throat, literally and figuratively. So if you notice, in the second year, when their political relationship was already shaky, when they were starting to investigate the human rights violation of the former president, they already had the administration, BBM, and his entire political coalition in the House already had the advantage. Okay, then what happened? They proposed charter change. So that gave the Duterte forces a rallying cry to oppose the administration. So all the political efforts to go after the Dutertes backfired because of their unwise attempt to change the constitution. Then the following year, they were already beginning to investigate the vice president, and they already had the advantage. Then what happened? They had this controversy with regard to the budget, and which already now has exploded into this full-blown crisis, right? Because of their strategic choice to use patronage as their main political weapon of choice for the midterm elections. And then they already had the advantage because they impeached the vice president, but they did not push through with the impeachment. So again, that was all for naught. Then that gave the opportunity for the Duterte forces to again regain the political narrative. So if you can see, there's a pattern. It's a back and forth. It's like watching political ping pong or political tennis between these two camps, right? Or it's like chess, no? So now that what is this? The flood control mess is originally the president had the advantage because he was the one to expose this. It's some form of inoculation or trying to preempt, the scandal, But and then he had the advantage.
He had the advantage, July, but it seems like the conclusion we can draw from this is that it backfired. And I'm going to pull up another chart just to show quickly. It's a very long report that you guys released, but there is one that says primary accountability on flood control. Number one, see President Marcos. People consider him the most responsible for this flood control mess. Ayan na, 31% said siya ang dapat pinakamalaking pananagutan or pinaka-responsable. The second line is the agencies, DPWH, DBM, and so on and so forth. Third is the Discayas. Fourth is former Speaker Martin Romualdez. And fifth pa lang, si former Congressman Zaldi Co. So, yes.
Right.
These are stark numbers.
This was exactly this was exactly what the president was trying to avoid by being the one to expose the entire mess, right? But what happened after that? No, suddenly he was able to recover the political narrative, and then there was this. There was this wide support even among his staunch critics. Had a wait-and-see attitude. Let's see what he's going to do. Then he appointed Vince Dizon to the DPWH. He established ICI. He established the portal. So in the beginning, there were a lot of goodwill, and there were a lot of people who was hoping that the president would be resolute in his approach to the issue of the flood control mess. But what happened after that? Then he suddenly slowed down. And then all the key personalities, rightly or wrongly, started dropping off his anti-corruption campaign, starting with, of course, Mayor Benjamin Magalong. Say what you may about his politics, but he rendered some legitimacy in the anti-corruption campaign at the beginning, especially the establishment of the ICI. But what happened? Then suddenly it appears that because of the long delay and the long process that happened in between, people got the impression that the administration is just dribbling. They started naming names, started building cases against some individuals, but these are not the big fishes that the administration was bragging they would put into jail before Christmas. So the people are impatient. And at this point in time, there is a vacuum, and different political forces, different individuals, different personalities have their own political agenda. We are seeing a stalemate. If you look at the numbers, the administration whose bailiwick used to be the North and parts of Metro Manila, they lost a lot of support in this geographic areas, right? And as expected, the Dutertes are still big in Mindanao, at a high 69%, a whopping 69%, and practically Visayas. Yes.
Prof, yes, I wanted to ask you about the demographics because as we saw in the midterms last May, it was very much youth-led. But what I'm seeing from your report is that a lot of the youth are now supporting actually the Dutertes. A lot are also still in that undecided, right? But Marcos is failing. It's almost a catastrophe. The youth have basically parang ayaw na nila sa kanya. And also, the traditional opposition, the Pinklawans, et cetera, also a lot of, kumbaga, medyo mas senior yung support nila. How do candidates maximize this knowledge from your survey moving forward?
Well, yeah. So, there was this impression that the youth was the X factor, the main demographic that supported parts of the pink opposition, particularly the yellow-pink opposition, the liberal reformists, particularly the surprising victory for Senator Bam Aquino and Senator Kiko Pangilinan, and then the victory of Representatives Laila de Lima, Chel Jokno, and Akbayan party list. So there was this impression that it was the youth vote or the Gen Z vote that carried the victory of this political bloc. But as we look into the data, it is true that a large part of those who supported this liberal reformist candidates were young, but it cannot be said that Gen Z or the youth as a bloc voted for just this political faction. Because if you look at the votes of Bato, and if you look at the votes of Bongo, there were a significant number of young voters who also supported them. And if we look at the disaggregation of this factional affiliation, a significant number of supporters of Duterte are also coming from 30 years, that demographic, 30 years and below, right?
So it's not just you supporting the liberal reform program. But lastly, very quickly, we're running out of time, but I do need to pull up one last chart.
Yes.
Pre-election surveys for presidential elections in 2028. Ayan na. I guess based on our conversation, people can guess who the top name is. We've got Sara Duterte at 33%. Raffy Tulfo is a far second place, just a little over 13%.
Yeah.
Lenny Robredo is also at 13%. Then you got Pongo, and fifth place is Robin Padilla. This more or less corroborates what you've been saying about the Duterte camp gaining a bit of momentum and getting a window of opportunity. But talk us through this. How much more do you expect this to change?
Well, the first question is, with all these things happening, aabot pa ba tayo ng 2028? So, di ba? Sa dami ng kaguluhan sa politika natin. But, objectively speaking, it's not surprising because, as expected, the Vice President still has a solid base of support and still remains to be the favorite on top of the pre-2028 election survey. And, of course, it also reflects the past surveys with Senator Raffy Tulfo coming at a very, low second. No? But what's surprising here is that the former Vice President and former presidential candidate, now Mayor Lenny Robredo, despite the fact of not doing anything political, not being involved in all of this, still has that solid support of, was it 13%, right?
Yeah.
13%. No, so it's either within the margin of error, it becomes 15, it becomes 13, but it never goes below or outside the margin of error. So that means that base of support, the original pink movement that supported her candidacy, is still there. Now the question is, what will she do with it? No? Will she decide to have a second run? If not, she should decide early, right? Because whomever she endorses would benefit from that 13%.
Well, even though, as of this moment, she insists that she will stay in local politics. But we'll leave that there and pick up with you. The other findings we'll pick up with you another time. Thank you so much for dissecting all of that for us. Dr. Julio Julay Tihanki, political scientist.
Thank you.
All right, and amid persistent rumors of government destabilization, the Marcos administration announced a pay hike over the next 3 years for military and other uniformed personnel. The details on that are next. While we take a break, keep it here on One News.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us on The Big Story. President Marcos has announced an increase in the base pay of all military and uniformed personnel, or MUP. The increase will be released in 3 tranches: January 1, 2026, January 1, 2027, and January 1, 2028. In addition, the daily subsistence allowance will also be hiked to 350 pesos from 150 pesos starting next year. The president didn't specify how much the base pay will be raised by, but said an executive order on this will be released soon. This will cover staff from the Department of National Defense, Department of Interior and Local Government, Philippine Coast Guard, Bureau of Corrections, and the National Mapping and Resource Information Authority. The announcement comes after weeks of rumors of a military-driven reset in light of the massive corruption scandal in the country.
Ang ating mga MUP ang unang sumasagot sa tawag ng tungkulin kahit kaakibat nito ang mga banta sa kanilang kaligtasan. Sa lupa, tubig o himpapawid, hindi kayo nagdadalawang isip na magsakripisyo ng inyong kaligtasan para sa kapakanan ng bawat Pilipino. Niniwala ang administrasyong ito na ang mga nagtatanggol sa bayan ay nararapat ring protektahan ng pamahalaan.
From politics, let's shift over now to some of the day's business headlines. The country's outstanding debt has now breached the government's full-year projection after the peso hit record lows against the dollar. Latest data from the Treasury shows the national debt rising 0.6% to 17.56 trillion pesos as of end October. That translates to roughly 210 billion pesos more than what they forecast for the full year. The October figure is also within range of the all-time high of 17.563 trillion pesos recorded just last July. The Treasury said the increase came from new domestic and external borrowings, compounded by the peso's weaker valuation. The exchange rate used for October was 58.77 per dollar.
Now, meantime, Bangko Sentral Governor Eli Remolona floated the possibility of another rate cut when the Monetary Board meets next week. Analysts are forecasting subpar growth that will fall below the government's 5.5 to 6.5% target, a result of the flood control controversy, which hurt public spending. Third quarter GDP came at a slower than expected 4%, though inflation remains below the BSP's 2 to 4% target range. The central bank has been on an easing cycle since August 2024, and benchmark rate is at its lowest in 3 years. The Monetary Board will meet on December 11th.
And Metro Pacific Tollways Corporation, or MPTC, has raised 20 billion pesos in fixed-rate bonds by sale on the Philippine Dealing and Exchange Corporation to support funding in expressways and cover its ballooning debt. MPTC's 15 billion peso bonds have been oversubscribed by 5 billion due to strong investor demand. Proceeds will fund ongoing works for the Cavitex, the Calax, and LLEX, as well as reduce MPTC's 200 billion peso net debt. MPTC earlier secured the SEC's pre-effective approval, with the public offer running from November 17 to 21. The deal is led by BPI Capital and First Metro as joint issue managers, with BDO Capital, China Bank Capital, PNB Capital, and Security Bank Capital serving as joint lead underwriters and bookrunners. MPTC and Signal, the owner of this channel, are both part of the MVP group of companies.
Right, and before we go, here's our big picture tonight. It's Los Angeles-based Filipino artist Kimberly Ann Cruz, who's included in Forbes magazine's annual 30 Under 30 list for 2026. Kim has been recognized for her paintings focused on the female figure in her nonprofit organization, Calma Art Foundation. Calma Art hosts workshops in remote locations in the Philippines, grants scholarships to children, and provides art therapy for young human trafficking victims. The annual list selects 30 notable people under 30 years old across 20 sectors. And notable figures who are also part of the 2026 list include Oscar winner Mikey Madison, Wednesday actress Emma Myers, and rising stars Miles Caton, Marissa Bode, and Sophie Thatcher.
The status news today is none of us is qualified for that list anymore.
Not Pawi's,
Not
for
even
just
me.
for a few months. I
You
also
missed
saw
it by just a few months.
Yeah, there was also this news, this Brazilian founder of Calci. She is now the youngest billionaire, and she like bust out Taylor Swift from her record.
Being the top billionaire in the world.
Yeah.
Wow.
For our first
amazing.
youngest female billionaire.
Amazing. Amazing.
It's amazing. Congratulations to Kim for being part of that prestigious list. It's inspiring. All right, but that's it for the big story this midweek. Thank you so much for watching.
We are back here tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. See you then.
Kapatid, we are One News, all sides, all the time. Have a good night.